On July 2, 1937, at 12 hours 14 minutes Greenwich Mean Time, the Coast Guard cutter Itasca sat anchored off Howland Island in the central Pacific Ocean, listening for a voice on the radio. The voice belonged to the most famous female pilot in the world. Amelia Earhart was supposed to land on Howland Island that morning. She never arrived. Her last clear transmission, received at 20 hours 43 GMT, was a single sentence. "We are running on line north and south." Then silence. The largest sea search in United States history was launched. 66 aircraft and 9 ships covered 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. 88 years later, the search is still going on. This is the last 24 hours of Amelia Earhart, and the new evidence that may finally close the case. By 1937, Amelia Earhart was already a legend. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1932. She was the first person of any gender to fly solo from Hawaii to California in 1935. She held 7 women's speed records. She had her own clothing line, her own luggage line, and a regular column in Cosmopolitan magazine. She was 40 years old, married to publisher George Putnam, and looking for one final adventure that no one else had completed. She wanted to be the first woman to fly around the world. Her plane was a custom-built Lockheed Electra 10E, twin-engine, with extra fuel tanks installed in the cabin to extend its range. Her navigator was Fred Noonan, a former Pan American Airways pilot known for his celestial navigation skills, but also for his struggles with alcohol. The two of them began the trip in Oakland, California on May 20, 1937. Over the next 40 days they flew east across the United States, south to Brazil, across the Atlantic to Africa, across Africa to Asia, then south through Southeast Asia to Australia, and finally to New Guinea. They had completed 22,000 miles. 7,000 miles remained, almost all of it over open Pacific Ocean. The plan was to fly 2,500 miles from to Howland Island, a flat coral pancake just 2 miles long, sitting alone in the open ocean. The Itasca would broadcast a homing signal. Earhart would home in on it, land on a runway built specifically for her, refuel, and continue to Hawaii. They took off from Laos on the morning of July 2, 1937. About 14 hours later, the radio transmissions from the Electra began arriving at the Itasca. The voice was Amelia's. The signal was strong. But there were problems. She did not seem to be receiving the Itasca's responses. She kept asking for headings and bearings. The Coast Guard sent them. Earhart kept transmitting on a frequency that the Itasca could hear, but listening on a frequency the Itasca could not reach. The two ships were shouting past each other across hundreds of miles of empty Pacific. At 7 hours 42 GMT she said she was running low on fuel. At 20 hours 43 she said the line north and south. Then she was gone. Now the theories. Theory 1 is what most contemporary investigators believed. The plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean somewhere within 200 miles of Howland Island. The wreckage sank in deep water and has never been found. Recent sonar surveys conducted by Deep Sea Vision in 2024 reported a possible plane-shaped object on the seafloor in approximately the right region. Follow-up missions in 2025 reduced confidence in that contact, but the search continues. Theory 2 is the Nikomaroro hypothesis, championed by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, known as TIRE. It proposes that Earhart, lost and low on fuel, turned south and successfully landed on the reef of Nikomaroro, then known as Gardner Island, 350 miles southeast of Howland. Bones discovered there in 1940, lost during World War II, were reanalyzed by anthropologist Richard Jantz in 2018, who concluded the original measurements matched Earhart more closely than 99% of comparison samples. Personal items consistent with a 1930s American woman, including a compact mirror, a freckled cream jar, and aluminum airplane parts, have been recovered from the island. Theory 3 is the Japanese capture hypothesis. Earhart strayed northwest into Japanese-mandated waters, was captured, and died in custody. This theory was popularized in mid-20th century books but is rejected by most historians, as no Japanese archival evidence supports it. So what do we actually know? We know she ran low on fuel about an hour before her last transmission. We know her radio communication had a one-way failure she never resolved. We know the